Hello, Repony. It's Lotus Moon. Alright, so today's reading is, well, as you saw from the title, it's gonna be a comedy. And if you saw the thumbnail already, yeah, not hard to guess what it's about. This story involves the royal sisters, Princesses Celestia and Luna, and is titled Equestria's Greatest Treasure. Now, this reading, oh dear. If you need to pause at any moment to laugh hysterically for a good 20 minutes or so, you have full permission to do so, because, yeah, it was pretty hard for me to do this reading without laughing myself. But without further ado, please enjoy. Equestria's Greatest Treasure, written by Lord_Steak. Who wants to wait for another to bake? Really? Very good. My lords and ladies, court is adjourned. Princess Celestia carried herself to the royal's door with a small, gentle grin and regal poise. The other nobles filed out, muttering amongst themselves about the daily proceedings. Celestia suffered herself a quick glance at them. None were watching her. Still, she maintained her even pace and elegant posture as she opened the door, stepped through, and closed it behind her. She remained so for exactly 20 paces past the door, where the hall came to a T-joint, and she turned left. 2 paces later, out of sight of her audience chamber's door, Princess Celestia broke into a dead sprint, licking her chops as excitement overtook her face. The sweet aroma filled her nostrils. Its smooth taste was on her lips. Surely Luna would heckle her for being preoccupied with confections, especially while holding morning court, but that hummingbird cake was just so gosh darn good. Celestia pushed open the way to the royal's kitchen. The head chef bowed first, as did the rest of the staff. Celestia acknowledged them on the move toward the pâtissière and her station. Amidst the prepared bagels, croissants, breads, muffins, and other baked goods sat a glass cake safe, a halo, beacon, a bastion of all that was right and good in the troubled world, both inside and outside Equestria's gilded borders. Within this sacred citadel stood one, and only one, slice of cake, a torte of angel white icing, hollowed pecans, blessed bananas, and pineapple tidbits that, if Celestia were to borrow a catchphrase from Rarity, were simply divine. Celestia approached this altar with due reverence for the sacrament of cake eating. As Celestia magically reached for the safe's lid, another aura abutted against hers, a pale blue against her yellow. She lifted her gaze and found her sister standing there, staring back with equal confusion. Luna blinked at the sight of her sister. Celestia looked stunned. Luna's eyes flicked between Celestia and the cake, while 2 auras held the lid. Luna felt her mouth water. She had come to enjoy cake for the work of art it was. Each such pastry, a different expression of confectionery beauty and love. This particular cake was a masterwork, an artisan's crowning achievement, something meant to behold and savor, it demonstrating the artisan's view of the world. Here was a sweet that mirrored a metal ore, or a diamond in the rough, that its outside belied the wonder, grandeur, and value inside, a rejection of external appearances, and how true beauty lies within. Truly she beheld a baker's perfect work of her art and trade. The lid clattered as both auras released in unison. Blinking, Celestia asked in bafflement, "Luna, you're awake?" Luna nodded slowly with a raised eyebrow. Yes, sister. I awoke early feeling peckish and thought a quick snack would do nicely. Are you not supposed to be holding morning court at present? We had just adjourned. All matters presented had resolved themselves quicker than expected, to no pony's complaint, Celestia answered. She sighed, then diplomatically said, Go on, dear sister. Enjoy the work of art you've come to appreciate. Nay, Tia, 'tis your beloved ritual, said Luna. Go, eat. It's okay, Luna. I have partaken of most of the cake. You should have the last slice, Celestia offered. Luna smiled graciously, but shook her head. I appreciate the offer, sister, but it was the cake you requested. I insist. The patissier bowed before diplomatically gesturing between the two and said, Your Majesties, we have all the ingredients to begin another hummingbird cake at once. May it please you? Celestia shook her head slowly and said, No, but thank you. You said you woke up early from hunger. You need your strength for watching over the dream world. Luna looked around and blinked at her sister in disbelief. We are standing in the kitchen, the size of a small village. Many are the options laid out before me. It would sadden you more than it would me to forgo the final slice. Lulu, you need not spare my feelings over one slice of cake, Celestia began. I admit I've had more than my share of it, and more than one pony alone should have eaten. 'Tis no concern that you have partaken of so much more of the cake. It is well with me, Sally, Luna answered. Go on, enjoy your favorite. Celestia frowned slightly, ignoring the patissier's gestures in an attempt to get either of their attentions. She said diplomatically, I appreciate the offer, sister, but you need not make it sound as though I wantonly consume confections. The patissier frowned, saying, Your Majesties, please do not forget the peace you both have enjoyed resulting from her ladyship Starlight Glimmer's visit. While not quite what I meant to convey, but by your own words, you... Luna began, then stopped suddenly as her eyes widened at the stark realization of what brash implications her sister would derive. Celestia frowned. Oh, I see, dear sister. You think I'm a glutton, a sugar addict who compulsively devours any and all cakes in sight. Tia, you're jumping to conclusions in the extreme, Luna protests. But you were thinking it, Celestia yelled back. The patissier sighed, muttering, Didn't we go through all these shenanigans once last week? Luna hesitated. At this, Celestia grumbled, That's what I thought. Actually, no, Luna said quietly. Barely audible, she muttered, Much stronger than that. What was that? Celestia snapped, taking steps towards her sister. Scoffing and starting towards her team, the patissier said, Cuirasses, every pony. Protests immediately came from her subordinates. Again? Oh, come on! We just did this Friday. Not even a whole week, eh? I hate that bloody thing. As the pastry makers began strapping into their breastplates, Luna said unhappily, It's just too many sugar. Is detrimental to your filly-like figure, sister. You're saying I'm fat, Celestia grouched. Luna hesitated yet again. Then, as one sugarcoats, she said, Do you remember, sister, that my relatively recent return from your exile means I remember clearly how you looked back then, as compared to now, and I suggest the sugar... Gritting her teeth, Celestia growled, You're saying I'm fat? Luna began sheepishly and looked away. Then just frowned irritably and barked back, "Yes, Celestia, you're fat." Pancakes every breakfast and layers of cake daily certainly caught up with you. You look like you packed on a good 40 kilos at least. Well, aren't you just precious? All this because I have the lithe feminine body, while you are built more like a stallion. Celestia fired back. Luna's nostrils flared. More like an overweight grandmotherly body. Sounds to me, dear sister, that you never got over that I have always been the better athlete. Probably goes back to your insatiable sweet tooth. We had to allocate funds for the purchase of stock in the sugar manufacturers, flour mills, and dental insurance providers simply to recoup some of the costs. One of the patissier's assistants, a unicorn stallion with a red maple leaf behind, a syrup dispenser for a cutie mark, and a Vancouver accent, muttered irritably as he fastened his armor's final buckle. At least they're not on about how much easier the other's duties are, eh? With his about sounding more like a boat. But they're still fixin' to make a whole heap of trouble, answered another unicorn stallion in agitation. This one with a cutie mark of a mixing bowl with a wooden spoon and 2 sticks of butter sticking out above the brim, and much more of a drawl to his voice. Ain't no sense in it. Especially after Starlight was just here last weekend. Oh, take off. Last weekend, responded the Van Hooverin, his head dragging upright while his last buckle clicked in place, and Celestia's right eye twitched like she was in the middle of an aneurysm. Friend, your sense of time is broken. Ain't hardly been 3 days, retorted the other, pulling out a mixing bowl. That was 3 weeks ago, you hoser. Snarling, Celestia barked at her sister. Funny! You're the athletic one. Isn't that right? All that running, jumping, and flying can do. Isn't it just delightful what one can do, spending all their time in the dream realm? How about the real world? A ray lanced from Celestia's horn at Luna, but she slid to her left. In a pale pinkish aura floated a foil-wrapped block, rotating near the spell ray. As Celestia's attack ended, this block returned to Patissier's second-in-command, who announced, "Cream cheese is softened." "Thank you," answered the Patissier as her team had finished measuring out different dry ingredients, throwing flour, sugar, bicarbonate of soda, salt, and cinnamon into a metal mixing bowl in front of her as she stirred them together. Part of the wall went to pieces along with the implements that were close by and mounted. While the cooks and support staff near the blast sighed and hung their heads, Luna passive-aggressively applauded with a snarky fox surprised smile. You can hold your cake, but you can't hold your aim. What's a chubby Philistine like you to do about it? Smile? You do it about the rest of the time. At least those muscles are in shape. Perfect! The center drives the point home. You look like a male, you have the subtlety and tact of a male, and you have the memory of a male too. Since you forget how much more there is to my job than smiling, Celestia roared. Maybe you should study while you're in the dream realm, Maybe then you can get to the bottom of how to be a lady. Luna openly laughed before glaring again. She snatched an empty metal measuring cup with her magic off the patissier's counter and threw it into the soft front of Celestia's nose. Sneering at the Yippet urn, Luna fired back, "Yes, you would be the expert about the bottom of things. Never could put much behind you, could you? Maybe that's why no pony ever told you that they don't see the sunrise in the morning. It's just your flank blotting out the sky and the little ones mistaking your cutie mark for the real thing." A deep scowling etched Celestia's face as she turned a virulent crimson. The patissier second-in-command muttered, "In 3, 2... Sally's got a big butt. Sally's got a big butt. Luna called in an elementary school worthy sing-song voice, wagging her hips goadingly. Guards! Celestia screamed. Luna cried, Guards here now! Rats! Early by a few ticks, grumbled the lieutenant pastry chef, giving a small coin purse to her Van Hooveren subordinate, who appeared most pleased with a wager's results. 2 lines of guards rushed in opposite to each other, one wearing golden armor, the other in periwinkle. While many faces were of fierce warriors or attempts to look like fierce warriors, the majority had sighed, rolled their eyes, or both. Heads shook everywhere else while the 2 sisters exchanged daggers with their eyes. The patissier asked, Where's that pineapple? Almost done coring it, answered some other assistant. Go! Ordered Celestia. Hold this ground. Let nothing fall into the hoofs of blasphemers. Stop her! Yelled Luna. Secure the station from those uncultured ruffians. Equestria depends on it. Both lines of guards rushed at each other, thrusting spears and hurling spells. Yet there was a distinct business-as-usual tone to their voices. The entrenched pairs nearest the pastry station were talking very calmly despite attacking each other with spears. With one duo, the day guard spoke first. Hey, serious, how was your little girl's recital? Sighing, the night guard parried another thrust and answered, dude, Brig, she choked. Stage fright got her. She bawled for an hour backstage afterwards. 2 spears were knocked aside, slamming onto the counter near the assistant who had just finished coring a pineapple. He held down the spears, using their bladed heads as a mandolin slicer on the pineapple as the night guard asked, Did either of you catch the game? The assistant grouched, Yeah, what were they thinking? Throwing a pass like that just before the halftime? I know, answered the day guard as the assistant turned the pineapple rings 90 degrees and used the spears to cut the rings into small wedges. Gave up a score and all the momentum going into the locker room, and they never recovered. Sure hope we do better against Manhattan, said the assistant, letting go of the spears. Thanks, guys. No problem, both guards answered in unison before getting back to jabbing at each other. Pineapple's ready, yelled the assistant, bringing a bowl over. Celestia locked horns with her sister, while the patissier vigorously mixed the bowl and another assistant greased a trio of round pans. She yelled at Luna, Why don't you try out for the soap operas, saying things like Equestria depends on it and such rot? No worse than you, your hindness, Luna snapped back. Her eyes flicked away for a second, then she let out a soul-piercing shriek. All of the fighting stopped. Luna's eyes turned misty as she feebly pointed. But... Celestia followed her sister's hoof and gasped in horror. There, at the cake safe, hovered little Princess Flurryheart. She had removed the lid and magically hoisted the last slice of cake, eating bites off of it and happily babbling to herself. At the door stood Princess Miyamori Cadenza, her face one of stupefied shock, and Prince Shining Armor, who was struggling to not burst into laughter. Celestia began to sob. That was the last one. The patissier spooned the batter into the pans, while the royal sisters held each other, beginning to cry. The guards all shrugged at each other and left, many saluting Shining Armor on their way out, or giving him an appreciative clap on the shoulder. Caden sputtered, Aunties! What in the world? Meh, this is nothing unusual. It happens whenever they both go for the last piece at the same time. How do you think I got so much experience commanding troops inside the castle walls? Shining answered her, snickering. Another last slice of cake day, but Flurry takes the last piece instead. Ha! Putting the 3 round pans in the oven, the patissier turned her attention to the icing while 2 princesses wept in each other's embrace, a third gleefully chattering baby talk between bites, the fourth shook her head slowly at an utter loss for words, and the one prince could contain his guffaws no longer. Sometimes siblings get rather intense over the last slice of cake, brings out a side of them that otherwise would remain hidden. Seen it get pretty strange and rather mean, but not as bad as these two. Yeesh. Alright, everybody, that was actually an excerpt from the author's note at the bottom of the reading. Anyway, this was Equestria's Greatest Treasure, written by Lord_Steak. My, this reading was utterly ridiculous. Really, over the last slice of cake? Honestly, looking at the thumbnail, the cake looks pretty much big enough to slice in half. They could have just done that and enjoyed it without having all of this problematic stress. But no, most of the kitchen is destroyed. The guards got a good slight laugh out of this while just having polite conversation. The chefs had to pretty much scramble to make a new cake, and the poor patissier now has to still work on making the frosting while the cake bakes in the oven. Cadence is at a loss for word. Flurry Heart got the last piece, which caused Celestia and Luna to cry, and Shining Armor is having the time of his life, laughing his flank off. Honestly, I have never had this kind of problem with cake. And not really wanting to completely sound like Celestia, but there was this one time my family and I went on vacation and took one of my cousins with us. We made 2 large cheesecakes, and within the span of a week, my cousin and I ate both of them. And went through like a whole gallon of milk to go with it too. It's not our fault. I'm the one that made the cheesecake, and it was so good. Especially because I actually experimented and mixed the strawberry topping into the cake instead of putting it on top of the cheesecake, which made it so much more delicious. Sorry about that, everybody. Anyway. Also, if you click on a story to read it for yourself without me reading it, the recipe for making the hummingbird cake is actually in the author's note at the bottom of the reading. So to any of you who would like to try making this cake for yourself, please do so. And if you don't mind, I do want to see how the end result is. I might actually make it myself for someone, or just to try it out for myself. I am Lotus Moon, and I want to wish you all a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night wherever you are, every pony. Good night.